Can we go on and turn, let's. Good evening and welcome to the open session of portion of our City Council meeting. We did have a closed session and we will be addressing a couple things based on that once we get into our meeting here. I would like to call us to order and to say, to those celebrating this evening, I recognize it is the 8th night of Hanukkah and a huge holiday for a lot of folks. I also don't think we've had a meeting this close to Christmas celebrations. So to everybody celebrating, we wish you a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all those in between. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you all will please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. And at this time, if you'll join us in a moment of silence that you can use for silent prayer to reflect on the issues that the city faces, to prepare for the meeting, or however you choose to use that time. Thank you all very much. Before we get into our minutes approval, I'd like to ask council, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda under new business with Ordinance 1826, which we will address later in the meeting. Do we have a second on that motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd also like to amend the agenda to include another item under new business, staff compensation for Radford City Police Department. Do we have a second on that motion? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, council members, you all have the minutes from November 10th. Are there any changes to those minutes, or do we have a motion to approve as submitted?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. At this time, we're going to open the floor for citizen comments on public matters. We ask that if you have something you would like to share with the council and with the public, please come down to our podium. Use the microphone, state your name for the record, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. The floor is now open. Last call for public comments. If you have a comment, you can come down to the podium, state your name for the record, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Okay. All right, thank you.
I am Isabella Horniff, and I go to the Radford High School. Luna. Sorry. My sister. One of the paintings that my school did, the one that I tried doing, the addition that I did was not added, sadly. But I still got to help out with the class, which I'm grateful for that.
Thank you, Isabella, and thank you to all the art students. And in fact, that leads us right into our next order of business. If we have no further comment for the public record, we will close that portion of the meeting. And at this time, we'll ask that Dan McKinney come on down to the podium. And we had some wonderful work done downtown. You may have seen it, that the Chamber of Commerce did, coordinated with the Radford High School art students. So Dan, welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you. It wasn't me that did it. I can assure. I can
but
assure
you coordinated. You coordinated.
Stick
That's
figures,
the important
maybe.
part.
So this idea came about with one of our members said that she saw this type of thing happen in a different city. So she's like, "Why can't we do that here?" I was like, "Well, maybe we can." So, do I have the clicker or?
And I'm just going to say, you and the whole team with the Chamber of Commerce do an amazing job helping to provide opportunities to represent our businesses, and this is just another wonderful project.
Thank you. So Dr. Joyce, who's our division superintendent for the Radford City Public Schools, sits on our board as the liaison for the schools. So after our board meeting, I approached him and said, this is something that I think I want to try to do, and he was all over it. So he got me in touch with Sarah Blackburn, who is the Radford City High School art teacher, and she was all on board as well. The kids were given a field trip day to go out and do these paintings. So it was super cool to see their enthusiasm, their diligence, their creativity, and they rocked 9 different businesses out in one day. So they were tired at the end. And I'm just going to try to read this. This is Sarah Blackburn's comments that she sent me. This is the art teacher. So my students and I were incredibly excited to participate in the window painting project for small businesses here in Radford. This experience is one we will carry with us for many years, and we truly hope it becomes a lasting tradition. Our students spent countless hours brainstorming, sketching, and refining ideas to ensure each business received a design that was thoughtful, creative, and unique. This project gave students the chance to take real pride in their work and feel a strong sense of ownership in what they created, something that doesn't always happen in the classroom. Throughout the day, members of the Radford community stopped to talk with our students, sharing how beautiful they found the artwork and how excited they were to see the windows being painted. Those moments were incredibly meaningful. They helped students feel proud not only to be artists, but also to be Radford citizens, contributing something positive to their community. We painted each window in about an hour and even managed to survive a dead battery in the van along the way. Needless to say, that added to the memories and reminded us that sometimes the most meaningful experiences come with a few unexpected challenges. Thank you again for giving our students this opportunity. We are deeply grateful for the support of our local businesses and community, and we look forward to any future opportunities to continue creating, connecting, and contributing here in Radford. I couldn't have said it any better than what she just put there, so I'm not going to dwell. I know you guys are running way late in the evening, so I'm just going to roll through some of these pictures. So these are 2 pictures of our students actually working on the windows on 2 different businesses. So the design at Brick House, so you can see they did the snowman around the wood-fired oven rather. Harvey Chevrolet. That was Hunn's Bike Shop, so you got one snowman holding a tire pump. That's at the old Radford Florist building. I thought the poinsettias was a nice touch. Radford Coffee Company. Radford Drug. Scott threw in that middle window unexpectedly, so that was actually a free-handed drawing that Sarah did. That's Radford Family Dental. I like the 2 little tooths and the love seat or whatever right there. Sage Health. Robertson and Company, Sharon Robertson, East Main Street. And I can go back and show any pictures if you all like. Like I said, I'm trying to roll through this a little bit quicker than I ordinarily would. But I do want to say a special thank you to Dr. Joyce, Sarah Blackburn, Adam Simpson, high school principal at Radford High School, all the Radford High School art students that participated, the companies that donated their windows, and they also actually provided a donation as well, and that money will go to the Radford High School art department. It's sitting right at $1,000 right now. But those are the same companies you saw the pictures from. So Radford Family Dental, Robertson and Company. The old Radford Florist building is owned by Robert Minnick, and Meg Weddle made a donation to help those two make that happen. Hans Bike Shop, Brickhouse Pizza, Radford Coffee Company, Sage Health, Radford Drug, and of course Harvey Chevrolet Buick. The Radford Chamber provided Sal's Pizza for the students for lunch. They were not expecting that. That was a surprise on my part. They were super stoked about that. That's all I got. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you to Ms. Blackburn and all of the students, and we do want to give them a round of applause. You know, East and West Main Street have looked amazing, and all the way out to Tyler Avenue with Harvey Chevrolet. It's been a nice piece. Hopefully we can continue this collaboration, and I know for years we had talked about, is there something we could do with some of the vacant buildings to make them pop a little bit more and to show a little bit more life? So thank you for doing this, and maybe more in the future. Isabella, as a representative of our students, thank you. And I don't know if we have any other of our students here. What's your name? Noel? Noah. Noah, thank you so much, and thank you for your work. We appreciate you too. But thank you to all of the students and families.
They worked hard that day.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
And I love to see it when we're using our local talent to make Radford an even more spectacular place. It's beautiful. Moving on to new business, we do have a number of things to consider, beginning with our West Radford Commerce Park substation voltage regulator. The electric department continues to proceed with the engineering and design of the West Radford Commerce Park substation and needs to purchase the next substantial piece of equipment. Voltage regulators adjust the distribution voltage in the substation to a steady level as the transmission grid varies due to load. An invitation to bid with specifications for 4 voltage regulators was issued last month. 2 competitive bids were received on Friday, October 31st. Siemens Energy submitted the lowest cost bid. Council, we have an award recommendation for $201,698.16 for Siemens Energy. Before we get to that, Todd, do you have anything to add?
We recommend Siemens Energy.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from council? Do we have a motion to award the bid? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you all very much. We also need to review our water agreement with the Pulaski County PSA and to schedule a public hearing to consider water rate increases under that agreement. We've had this agreement since February 22nd, 2010, and it states that any new rate shall become effective on the anniversary date of the agreement, remain the new base for the following year. Increases in water utility rates must be adopted by ordinance following a public hearing. So as a part of this, just to share with the community, once we were made aware of Pulaski County's actions regarding the Fairlawn Revenue Sharing Agreement, we began to review all of our agreements with Pulaski County, and we saw that we had not raised water rates in a similar fashion for the county as we had for the city of Radford, and we do have some customers in Pulaski County. So we're going to schedule a public hearing on January 12th, 2025, if that is the pleasure of council. Do we have a motion to schedule that hearing? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we will have more information for you at that time with the public hearing on January the 12th. Okay, we do have Ordinance 1825, which refers to our procurement policy, and it repeals Chapter 80, Procurement of the Radford City Code, and adopting the provisions of the Virginia Public Procurement Act. In addition, the new ordinance provides for the adoption of small purchases procedures by written policy. Todd, would you like to share any additional information on Ordinance 1825?
Absolutely. The update is, it's really long overdue. It should happen. Last time that you guys, it appears to me that the procurement ordinance was last put in the code in 1992. What it attempted to do was to incorporate all of the Procurement Act that was in place as of 1992. So Todd had contacted me about updating the city's policy relating to its small purchase procedures to begin with, and I said, this may be a good time to do an overhaul. And what listen, we typically follow the state procurement provisions anyway, so what I suggested is rather than trying to incorporate the entire Procurement Act into your ordinance, it would make sense just to incorporate the Virginia Public Procurement Act, including any amendments there too, as your procurement policy. That way you don't it always stays up to date as the state code provisions change.
So as such, where we repeal this and adopt the provisions of the Virginia Public Procurement Act, are there any questions from council? Do we have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1825, the procurement policy, which repeals current Chapter 80 procurement of the City of Radford Code and adopts the provisions of the Virginia Public Procurement Act?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on. At our September 22nd, 2025 meeting, council appointed officers, authorized representatives, and a maintenance manager as required for PJM, which is part of our electric purchasing process for Radford's move from our contract electric to additional electric purchases. The forms need to be updated because we have a new chief finance officer in Trish Cox, and it is also requested that Ashley Wentworth be added back as an authorized representative. Todd, do you have anything else you'd like to share regarding this?
Well, I know that we discussed adding Ashley at the last meeting when we discussed it. We are going to need her on there if we're going to continue toward PJM. She's going to have to handle some of the technical issues with the agreements, with what goes on with buying electricity on the market. She cannot make any decisions that are binding on the city as an authorized representative, but it does authorize her to get into the system and take certain actions that are authorized on behalf of the city.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt Trish Cox and Ashley Wentworth as representatives for the city's electric purchase with PJM? So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving forward, we do need to look at appointments for Pepper's Ferry. Currently, I'm one of the representatives along with David Ridpath. His term is expiring on December 31st, 2025. At this time, I'd request that the council table the appointment for the board member, but that we reconfirm Mr. Wade Van Oy, who's been designated as an alternate appointee for both Mr. Ridpath and myself to serve, and then we'll readdress this later in 2026. So do we have a motion to table the appointment for the board member? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And do we have a motion to adopt Wade Van Oy or to reaffirm Wade Van Oy as our alternate board member? So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I think we're in good shape on that, Melissa, correct? Okay, I thought we did, but that we just doubled down. That's fine. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we have several appropriation ordinances. If it pleases council, I'm going to go through 18, 15, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, and then we can approve as a group if that's acceptable. We can have discussion on each one separately and then just do a single approval. Does that sound okay? Yes. Okay. Appropriation Ordinance 1815.19, the DCJS SRO grant. Radford City Police Department has been awarded an SRO grant through the Department of Criminal Justice Services for the Student Resource Officer position at Radford High School. This covers the salary, benefits, and replacement equipment for the SRO at this school. The grant was awarded in the total amount, including city contributions, of $108,451. The funds become available January 1st, 2026. Council, do you all have any questions regarding that grant? Hearing none, we will move forward with Appropriation Ordinance 1815.20, which is another SRO grant, and this is for Dalton Intermediate, McCarg Elementary School. The grant covers salary, benefits, and replacement for the SROs in these schools. The grant was awarded in the amount of $196,303. The funds become available starting January 1st, 2026. Any questions regarding that grant? Okay. Then finally, or additionally, our Appropriation Ordinance 1815.21, the city has received Community Development Block Grant funds since 2004. This year's allocation from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, is $166,346, and we already approved the action plan on May 12, 2025, which includes emergency home repair. Again, this is for folks who own homes that need emergency repair. The facade program, which we work with the Chamber of Commerce along the Main Street corridor to help businesses with their facades. Actually, we work through the EDA on that as well. Infrastructure improvements along Grove Avenue. That is a main water line that serves much of the city, and that's a much-needed project. And then we have subrecipient support for New River Community Action, the Women's Resource Center, Bobcat Backpack Program, Radford Daily Bread, and the Radford Clothing Bank. Council, do you all have any questions regarding the utilization of the CDBG money in the amount of $166,346? Hearing none, we will move forward. And then finally, we have Appropriation Ordinance 1815.22. The Treasurer has requested the appropriation of DMV funds to be transferred to the support of the Treasurer's budget. These funds are required to be appropriated, 80% of the incoming revenue from the DMV funds. The remaining 20% of these funds were accounted for in city revenue. And that amounts to $150,893. Council, do you all have any questions regarding the appropriation of these funds? Hearing none, we will move forward. Then finally, Appropriation Ordinance 1815.23. The City of Radford has several encumbrances and purchase orders outstanding at the end of fiscal year 2025 in the budget year. Purchase orders total $650,737 relating to the water plant, Community Development Block Grant, Virginia Department of Transportation, East Main Sidewalks, and water lanes. And to carry the funds into fiscal year 2026, we need this appropriation in the amount of, as I said, $650,737. Are there any questions regarding those funds? Hearing none, we will move forward. Do we have a motion to adopt Appropriation Ordinance 1815.19, 1815.20, 1815.21, 1815.22, and 1815.23?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with second readings for all those ordinances. Is there a motion that we do so? We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Just a few minutes ago, you heard us in Appropriation Ordinance 1815.22 to appropriate funds to the Treasurer's Office budget in the amount of $150,893. Janet Jones, our treasurer, who is here with us this evening, has requested that we consider Ordinance 1826, which is an ordinance to appropriate DMV Select funding to the Office of the Treasurer, providing for one-time bonus to employees of the City of Radford. And I would like to read this because I think it's very important and something that we're pleased that the Treasurer has recommended for the city to do. Whereas pursuant to the Virginia Code Section 46.2-205 and the 2024-26 Virginia State Budget, the Office of the Treasurer of the City of Radford serves as a DMV select location under contract with the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles. And whereas, subject to appropriation by the Radford City Council, the Treasurer's Office receives compensation for the DMV for the additional work involved in processing certain motor vehicle-related transactions on the DMV's behalf. Whereas the DMV Select funds cannot be used to supplant existing local funding or reduce the local share approved by the Compensation Board for the Treasurer's Office, and whereas upon appropriation the use of DMV Select funds is in the discretion of the Treasurer, and whereas the Treasurer has proposed to use a portion of the DMV Select funds received by her office to provide a one-time bonus to certain full-time and part-time employees of the city, whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-1508, the City Council is required to provide for any bonus to city employees by ordinance. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-2507, the City Council is authorized to amend the city's budget as necessary to promote the functions of the city's government. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Radford as follows. The DMV Select Funds in the amount of $150,893 is hereby appropriated to the Office of the Treasurer, and the city's budget is hereby amended accordingly. That subject to the limitations stated in paragraph 3 below, each full-time employee of the city shall receive a $500 bonus, and each part-time employee of the city shall receive a $100 bonus, provided, however, that employees of the Radford City Department of Social Services shall not be eligible for the bonus. That is for a reason that they had received some additional monies and would not be eligible for this. That the bonuses described above shall only be funded from the DMV Select Funds appropriated to the Treasurer's Office and not from any funds available to the city, other funds available to the city. That any DMV Select funds remaining after payment of the bonuses shall remain the funds of the Office of the Treasurer, and that the city manager and the city's Director of Human Resources are hereby authorized to take such additional actions as are necessary to accomplish the purposes of this ordinance. And be it further ordained by the Council of the City of Radford that in accordance with sections 2.13 and 2.14 of the city's charter respectively, a second reading of this ordinance is hereby dispensed with, and this ordinance shall take effect immediately as an emergency measure. Before we move forward, council, do you all have any questions?
Yeah.
I think this is making Christmas and the holiday season a lot nicer for a lot of folks, and it is a wonderful gesture. Thank you very much, Janet. We're very appreciative of you for this.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. I know that this time of year, this is will be well received by all staff, so thank you.
Okay, Melissa, well, do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Melissa, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Artrip?
Yes.
Mrs. Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Gillespie? Yes. Mr. Wolford?
Yes.
Mayor Horton?
Yes. Once again, thank you, Janet. We appreciate that, and I think she deserves a round of applause for this, so thank you. As we're moving forward, we've been working a lot on many different issues as a council with our administration, working to try to adjust our budgets, our revenues, trying to make things happen and address things. As such, we have been looking at all of our departments and dealing with issues as they arise. Our Chief of Police, Jerry Holdaway, is going to come down here in just a moment. We're going to ask him to come forward as we consider some new business, which is a need for staff compensation for adjustments for Radford City's police department. So, Chief, if you will come on down, and while you're doing so, we are going to mention that we will be reaching out to appropriate other department heads to have similar discussions as necessary. Again, we don't have giant bags of money we wish we did that we were always able to do everything with, but tonight we're talking Radford City Police Department, and Chief Holdaway, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I guess just in full transparency, without giving away a whole lot of concerns, we're at critical staffing levels at our police department right now, and we've been short for some time. But when we look at our budgets and stuff, we have returned a lot of money to the city by salary savings, and it's nice that to have an opportunity or a platform to share some concerns, but to really let everyone know where we're at salary-wise. Currently, we're 9 police officers short. With a PD of our size, that's a huge number that we encounter every day. Strategic planning, we have 9 police officers that are eligible for retirement in the next 5 years. Our shifts are we're working at minimum staffing standards most days and nights. The thing that I think is relevant for everyone to understand is that the dynamics of our call volume and the things that we're experiencing in the city is much like we've not experienced ever before. We seized our 50th gun on Saturday, and to put it in perspective, last year we seized 27 guns. We answer between 80 and 120 mental health calls a month. Last year we handled 80 emergency custody orders by ourselves at our police department. And with the onset or the addition of Radford probation and parole, we're double digits arrest every month at Radford probation and parole. Radford probation and parole, which at minimum ties a police officer up for an hour, but sometimes it could be way more time. You know, we're talking a couple hours at every time. And with these arrests, and we're really burning our police officers out with the minimum staffing standards that we have. And I think there's value in to understand that we've been very conservative with our budgets and return money. In the FY 2024 budget, we returned about $857,000. Last year, we returned a little over $500,000 at $523,000. And with that said, there was an unexpected cost associated with Hurricane Helene, and we spent $230,000 on an animal control facility. So last year's numbers would still have been up around the $750,000 mark. And one of the things that I'm proudest of is that we have a phenomenal grant writer and a grant chaser in our police department that has gotten the city this past calendar year $1.3 million in grant money for the city. The actual number is more about $1.6 million, but when you take away the matches that the city has required, we've still earned the city roughly about $1.3 million. So overall, in the last couple years with the grants that we've achieved, salary savings, we're at about $2.6 million we've saved the city in the last couple years. So I have a small ask, or a big ask really, when you start looking at some of the money we've saved versus our position in the ability to hire and retain police officers. Current salary for us, starting salary is $47,199. When you look at the region, we're definitely the most underpaid criminal justice entity in the New River Valley and Roanoke Valley. Radford University, of course, leads the way at about $55,000 a year starting salary, and the regional jails both start out at higher starting salaries than our current police officers do here in the city of Radford. Local, we're the premier law enforcement agency for the city of Radford. Radford University PD starts out at $54,902. The Radford City Sheriff's Office starts out at $47,721, and after you're there for a year, you're at almost $50,000 in salary, which again, our dispatchers are, with some stipends and salary increases, are making about $49,000 this year. And we have police officers right now that have 2 and 3 years experience making $47,199. And why this is so critical currently with such short numbers in police officers, the ability to hire and retain a police officer is crucial in the industry. But for us to invest and hire a new police officer for 2 years experience, the city has a $238,000 investment by the time we count on training and equipment. And that's somebody that may or may not even make the cut as a police officer, where if you have police officers with 2, 3, 4, and 5 years experience, it is definitely more beneficial to keep those guys around versus trying to hire and train someone up. And of course, just knowing your community, being here for a couple years, you know what you're encountering, you know what you're seeing, and having that stability and that familiar face is valuable for our city. What the proposal was this afternoon is that we are asking for a $2,500 increase in the 6 non-sworn staff that we have at our police department and a $10,000 a year pay increase for our sworn police officers. It is critical staffing standards issues that we have faced as an agency, but we have asked more for our police officers and we've asked more for our non-sworn staff than we've ever had in the history that I've been at the police department. They have taken on tasks and responsibilities that no non-sworn staff member should have. We've got guys that are doing cell phone analytics and sending out internal bulletins and agency-wide bulletins and being dispatchers when that is never part of their job description. So with the shortage of staff for police officers, it is also an internal effect that has caused some burnout with our non-sworn employees. When we look at this $10,000 a year increase, it goes without saying that we've lost a lot of police officers in the last couple years, and prominently because of pay. When you can recruit and ask our Radford City police officers, who are some of the best men and women in the business, and you can offer them a new car, all the overtime they want, and a 10 to 12 to even sometimes more than that $1,000 a year salary increase. It's just time that we've got to do something to keep our good men and women here and not let other agencies fish them away from us. So that was part of the presentation tonight, and I definitely am grateful for the men and women that I work with, but I also understand that we are running on some scary numbers right now with our police officers, and we can't afford to lose one more police officer. If we do, it changes our entire operating structure, which will also cause some major issues.
Chief, thank you so much, and thank you to all the women and men of the Radford City Police Department. I know this was a discussion that we held earlier this evening in closed session to talk about this from a personnel perspective, and we felt like it was really important to bring it to the entire community so you could see these numbers and hear what we had to talk about with this, to look at the savings that the police have been able to bring in. We just mentioned the several $100,000 in resource officer grants from the Department of Criminal Justice Services that helps to offset some of this. Todd, I'll turn to you and say, is this something you can manage within the city's budget based on the numbers that have been presented and what the chief is asking? Yes. Council, do we have a motion to move forward to support the chief's plan?
Wanted to add before we made a motion that everyone else didn't get to see was an 8-minute video that Chief was able to show us. For obvious reasons, he wasn't able to show that here, of some of the calls that they are dealing with running 3 to a shift. It's what they have consistently been doing more with less, and the chief and his department are fine examples of going above and beyond to find. And I told him that I would say this in closed session and in open session, going above and beyond to receive grants and really maximizing every resource they have. It's appreciated. There's one thing we cannot not do with, and that's the safety of this community. And Todd, I know that we've all asked you in closed session, and we'll lean on you because, you know, this cost, we have to make up for it somewhere, but I just don't believe that we can afford to not be able to retain the men and women that we have. It's just too critical. So I just wanted to thank the chief again for your presentation.
I don't believe you mentioned, Chief, the amount of money it costs to train and bring a new person on, did you, just then?
$250,000.
Yeah, $238,000 and some odd dollars. So to retain some people at a $10,000 increase, I think is far less than.
Well, absolutely, and I apologize, but you're correct. It's the national model is roughly about $250,000 to train and recruit a police officer for 2 years. We broke it down and looked individually at what it cost us for some of the appointments and uniforms and training in the academy, and we're about $238,000 for a 2-year police officer to come work in Radford. When you look at the numbers, and you know, I apologize, I feel like I left the biggest part out and I should have said something, but yeah, using the grant money from the school resource officers to offset the cost of the increase in salary plus a couple positions that we did not, that we had counted on in July 1st, but they have since been recruited away or left because of money issues. We're able to offset those costs and just simply ask for a reallocation of money that the city had already planned for to begin with, and on July 1st that we were going to be spending in salary. Those 2 positions, if we hire a police officer and keep them here for 2 years, if we hire 2 police officers, that is more money than in what it would cost to have a raise to keep our men and women that have a lot of experience here in our city working here without, you know, it's just simple math for me. It's definitely a much more feasible and financial decision to give our guys raises versus trying to hire and train and recruit 2 police officers. And the other thing I would share is that we do our best to hire some of the best men and women in the business, and there's no guarantee they pass the academy. There's no guarantee that they make it out of field training. A lot of people want to do this job, but much like what you guys saw in that 8-minute video, it will crack the best men and women who are the hardest and most toughest that I've seen, and it will definitely change their life forever when you're running these calls that we're seeing every 3-4 days. So there just becomes a position where, you know, if you have someone that's here for a few years and has the mentality and can handle it, it's much better to pay those guys and keep them here than to try to run the risk of losing another $238,000 on someone that doesn't make it 3 years.
Thanks, Chief. Anything else from anybody on council? Well, I'll call once again. I think we all are fully in support of this because we recognize how important the public safety component is in continuing to move forward with our first responders. Do we have a motion to adopt the plan as proposed by Chief Holdaway?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
I do want to add, you know, we're talking about public safety. I've also asked that the fire chief come and do a similar presentation because the community safety is a top priority, and we know that you guys are being recruited because you're good and you're dedicated, and so we just need to keep our finger on that pulse and make sure that we're at the levels we need to maintain our our safe community, so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Really, for the last 12 months, and going back a little longer from a budget perspective, but definitely in the last 12 months from a personnel perspective, we've had a lot of change here in the city of Radford. The most obvious change is hiring on Todd Meredith as our city manager, and additional changes in staff under his supervision. And we've asked that Todd put together a strategic report that kind of gives you an update of where we are today, where we've been as best as we can understand as of now, and where we're going and what we're looking at. And this is a really important piece. So we're going to turn the floor over to Todd, and he has a presentation prepared for us to talk a little bit about what he sees with our budget, our process, looking at several recent issues and addressing some of those pieces. So Todd, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you, Chief, your leadership team, your entire department. Thank you for all that you do. The city of Radford is very lucky to have you.
Amen.
So thank you very much. And also thank you for being proactive with grants. I'm continually impressed with you and your department. So thank you. Mayor, members of the council, it's my pleasure to give you a mid-year manager's report. It's December. We're halfway through the fiscal year, so I look forward to giving you an update of where the city stands at this point. So with that being said, I think the first place to start is really to set the stage for the current fiscal year 2026. Council and the city took a few decisive actions, a few critical first steps prior to the beginning of fiscal year 26. And you'll see on the board here a few topics I'd like to discuss with everyone. The first thing the city did was take care of the revenue anticipation note that had been out there since 2023. It was originally taken to mitigate cash flow issues during that fiscal year. It was renewed again the following year in 2024. But a critical first step to getting the city's cash flows and finances stabilized is getting that revenue anticipation note, otherwise known as a RAN, paid off, because it comes due at the end of every fiscal year. And you can imagine your cash flows and your finances bouncing at the end of each fiscal year when you have this RAN coming due. So that was a critical first step the city took prior to the current year that we're in to stabilize the city's cash flows. Second thing the city did to work the revenue side of the ledger, the city went up on several revenue line items in its budget, in its portfolio. Real estate tax was increased from 69 cents to 83 cents. There was an increase in personal property taxes from $2.44 to $2.55. The meals tax was increased 1%. There was an increase in hotel occupancy taxes from 8% to 8.5%. There was an increase in solid waste fees from $22 to $25, a $3 increase. And water and sewer rates were increased by $4 per 4,000 gallons. So there was tremendous effort. That was a heavy lift. The city has worked the revenue side of the budget, and we've been watching that so far through this fiscal year. And I'll talk more about that as we get further into the presentation. The other thing that the city did was we took a look at, and this is prior to me starting here, but we took a look at the expenditure side of the budget, and the city also made adjustments there to work the expenditure side of the ledger. The city council and the city took decisive action to mitigate general expenditures, to pull those back, and payroll, to reduce payroll expenditures. Through attrition, the city has reduced its payroll by approximately 28 full-time employees since the beginning of the budget, since the budget was created. I think a key point for everyone to understand with both of these actions, working the revenue side and the expenditure side of the ledger, there's a lag, there's a delay to capture the full financial benefit of all of those actions. The revenues, we collect those monthly, semi-annually, quarterly, sometimes annually. It takes time. It takes an entire fiscal year to capture what you've projected with your revenue increases. You don't get those on July 1st. You don't have them all in October. You don't have them in December. You collect them all by the end of June. So it takes an entire fiscal cycle to see that have its full impact on your cash flows. Same thing with some of the expenditures. As we have pulled back on payroll expenditures, it takes an entire year to capture savings from reduced salaries. So it takes a while to see that on your financial books. It's going to take a while to see that in your cash flows. So when you look at a municipality's finances, typically what it's going to look like is a sine wave. You're going to have peaks and lows. You're going to have high points and low points. Often it looks like a sine wave, just like you have here. This is a conceptual representation of what a typical municipality's cash flows would look like within the state of Virginia. And you can see at the beginning of the quarter, the fiscal year, you've most likely received your intergovernmental transfers, you've received your real estate taxes in June, so you're at a high point, one of your high points throughout the year. Midway through the quarter, every municipality is going to experience low points, because midway through the quarter, you're not receiving intergovernmental transfers and you're not receiving your real estate taxes. You're receiving things that are collected monthly, such as fees, utility bills, etc. Under healthy conditions, what you can see here, the blue line are the cash flows. The orange line is a representation of your minimum required cash on hand. That is what every municipality really needs to keep in case you have an emergency, another Hurricane Helene. You have to have funds in the bank to cover that. Under healthy conditions at your low point, you have a good healthy separation between your low point and your required minimum cash on hand throughout the entire fiscal year. So far, I've been here 6 months. What I've observed with the city of Radford and staff as well, what we've observed is it looks more like what you see on the board right now. At the low points, the city of Radford's cash flows get too close for comfort to that minimum required cash on hand that you want to have for those emergencies and other required expenditures. It gets really close. And the point I want to make here is when the city of Radford reaches these low points, typically they're midway through the quarters. And sometimes they're even, on September 30th, at the end of your first quarter, and sometimes your third quarter, you're still not getting real estate or personal property taxes at those points. You're getting transfers from the state and the federal government, but you're not collecting taxes. So even those bumps are not as high as what you would receive in December or June. But when we're at low points throughout our fiscal year and we're close to that required minimum cash on hand, the city has to be very strategic and very thoughtful with disbursements that it makes, with purchases that it makes. We have to monitor very closely how much cash is going out the door. Because if we fail to do that and our cash drops below our required minimum cash on hand, it puts the city at risk of taking out financing, taking out borrowing money to maintain cash flows. And that does not benefit the taxpayer. The reason it doesn't benefit the taxpayer, if it's an unnecessary loan, you're paying interest on that loan. If we can avoid that or mitigate that, the city has to make every effort to avoid situations that require borrowing to maintain cash flows. And we've done so throughout this fiscal year. So I talked about actions that were taken before July 1st. Well, these are actions that were taken after July 1st, and you're going to see some alignment in this slide. First thing, monitoring expenditures, that side of the ledger. Every purchase over $1,000 requires managerial review. The reason it requires that is we want to make essential purchases only. If we don't need it, we don't want to buy it. That's to maintain cash flows. Department directors have been bringing expenditures to myself in the city manager's office, and if it's not necessary, we don't purchase it. Purchases we are making are things like a water pump to make sure that the water plant works properly, tires for some of our essential vehicles because they need them to pass inspection. We're only making required purchases to reel back in to mitigate expenditures. The second thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we've reduced our payroll by approximately 28 employees. We've reeled back on our payroll expenditures. That will take time. I want to reiterate the point, that takes time. You don't capture those savings on day one. You capture them over the course of 12 months. But we have made those reductions. As you make reductions, you have to pay attention to your internal processes. You have to make sure you're operating effectively and efficiently. The name of good government is do it the best you can do it at the cheapest cost possible. And that's what we're paying attention to, but that takes time. To get an organization operating the way it needs, to pay attention to things like quality. That's continuous improvement culture. We're trying to implement that here in Radford, and we've taken some critical first steps to doing that. I do want to talk about both of these bullets for just a minute. Continuous improvement does not mean you reach perfection. It means you're always tending to quality. And the reason that's important is if you get it right the first time, you don't have to rework it. It takes rework out of your system, and rework costs money. So we're paying attention to quality. We're learning how to manage it, how to define it, and how to keep it in control so that we're not reworking or costing the taxpayer any more money than is required. The second part of this is lean management. We are looking at every process in every department, every process for services or products that we produce for the city of Radford and its residents, and we are looking at every single piece of that operation to find areas where there may be things that are going on that are not a value add. Maybe it's an inefficient use of time, or maybe it's mobilization of certain departments that do work throughout the city. Just making sure that we are as efficient as possible, because that allows value to flow more quickly and directly to our residents. We're paying attention to both of these things. They do show up on your financial books. They may not show up on day one, but they show up eventually. The second thing, or moving on, the city of Radford has a lot of resources. We need to grow our way out of this as well. Yes, the finances are tight, but Radford has a lot of ingredients that is very attractive to industry and businesses. And we need to continue, even though the cash flows may be tight at the current moment, and they are, we need to continue to foment economic development in the city of Radford, make sure it keeps growing. The West Radford Commerce Park is a great example of that, and she's not here tonight. I know Kim's worked very hard on that, and we've worked very hard to complete a project funded by a grant from VEDP to turn this site into a shovel-ready site to attract an industry into Radford. That is a generational project. The city has moved forward with that, kept it fully funded throughout the fall, throughout the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year. We're nearing completion of it, and I'm very excited to see that site move toward being shovel-ready, because I honestly think we're going to attract a large industry or large business to that site. I think it could be a major job creator. That will grow Radford's economy. We need to focus on that, and we can't ignore it. Just because we're in some fiscal stress, we need to continue these. This is part of the recovery. We're working on new initiatives to attract businesses into Radford. We're working on one right now to mitigate the cost of water and sewer availability fees. That's designed to convince businesses that Radford is the place you want to locate. We're ready to work with you. And that's the message for anyone that wants to build a business or locate within Radford. We're ready. We're ready to work with you. And we're constantly looking at ways to make doing business in the city of Radford seamless for businesses looking to locate here. We have housing developments. There's currently a large housing development, approximately 54 homes that's being constructed within Radford. That's good for the economy. The more homes you have, the larger your population. Well, businesses like that. They look for areas where they have customers. It also works the other direction. The more businesses you have, the more people want to develop homes. So they work in tandem with each other. And we need to continue to support those, and we have. So we're continuing to try to grow Radford's economy the best we know how, and we're trying to market Radford the best way that we know how. We have issued an RFP for a forensic audit. If you go to the city's website, you'll see the RFP's been put out there. We are working with vendors that have contacted the city. They're looking at putting bids in. We're answering questions. We hope to have those in within the next few weeks. We'll review those and have something to report back to council. And I think the forensic audit and looking at auditing and looking at your operations and finances, it's very important because, yes, you can't change the past, but you can learn its lessons and you can apply them as you go forward. And that audit process is part of that. We're trying to gather as much information as we can. We're trying to learn every lesson that we can so that as we move forward, we do it right. and we do it the right way, and we build it the correct way the first time. As I was talking earlier, we don't want rework. We want to get it right as we move forward, and that's part of that process. Organizational restructuring, we are looking at that. Not only are we looking at operations, we are looking at how we're structured and how our organization is organized, and are we postured toward achieving what council and the public wants us to achieve. The first and immediate need was to look at the finance department. We needed to see whether or not we were, number one, getting the accounting and financial information that we need to make good financial decisions as we move forward. We've done that. We reorganized the department. We created a chief financial officer position. We have filled that with Trish. And Trish, I'm so thankful to have you here with Radford. Thank you for coming on board with us. It's already paid dividends. We're already getting better information. And information, especially financial information, to a large part, it's the lifeblood of your organization. You have to have it. And we're getting that now. Moving on, or building off of that, we want to improve our budgeting practices. As you know, Craig discovered in the spring, I've continued to look into it, and confirmed many of the budgeting issues that Craig found. We want to improve our budgeting and our decision making with data-based decisions. And to build on that, I want to take a look at one revenue projection that was overestimated for 3 years in a row. It's very important that when you're making a projection, whether it be revenues or expenditures, you really need to hit them as close as you can. Because if you're not correct on your budget projections, you can spend your fund balance down, or a municipality can spend its fund balance down. So if you'll bear with me for a moment, I would like to walk through this. This is one revenue line item that's part of a larger portfolio of revenues for the city of Radford. It's in the general fund. And I want to make one point, very clear. This is one line item, but I am seeing the same pattern in the other revenue line items across the city's portfolio. So if we look at 2023, the city staff budgeted for $1.7 million. The actual amount brought in that year was $1.6 million. The variance was $185,000. They missed it by $185,000. That alone is not that egregious. However, if you continue over, what I did, I went back to 2015 and I took the actual data. And I put myself in the position, okay, what projections should have been put on the budget for fiscal year 2023 for local sales and use tax? This was done through a regression analysis, trend analysis. So taking that actual data, the time that it was collected in, and making a prediction based off of that data. If trend analysis had been used in 2023, the number that should have been, or in my opinion, that should have been put on that revenue line item is $1.5 million. There would have been a $20,000 variance to the good. 2024, so it was missed in 2023. The revenue was overshot, so we move on to 2024. The budgeted amount goes up, so city staff increased the budgeted amount. The actuals come in actually lower. They're down to $1.5 million. There's a $550,000 variance there. Had trend analysis been used that year, $1.6 million would have been put on the budget. We still would have missed it by $108,000. But as you see, using trends, the data tends to work that out. If you continue to use trends and you budget based on your actuals, it works itself out through the data. 2025, city staff, once again, they had missed it in 2024 by 550, goes up again on the revenue. Well, they missed it again. The actuals were 1.7 million. It was off by 390,000. Had trending been completed on making that revenue projection, the city would have come out $109,000 to the good. The point I would like to make out is using data-based decisions, and making budget projections based on actuals. If you look at the total variance at the end of that 3-year period, there's only a $21,000 variance, and it's to the good. The city, instead of being off $1.1 million, $21,000 to the good. That's using data for budget decisions. Please keep in mind the FY25 budgeted number or actual number is an unaudited number. That's on each one of these slides. I don't think that number would change much, but I just want to make everyone aware that those numbers could change as we complete the audit. Just to drive this point home further, as I said, 2 years in a row, the city's budgeting for about $2.1 million in revenue on the local sales and use tax. Well, going back to 2015, looking at the actual amount that was being collected, the city never came close to crossing the $2 million barrier. Using data, it doesn't make sense to continue to increase those revenues, and that's one thing that we're going to clean up. We are working to clean that up. As we move into the new budget for next year, we're going to make projections using trend lines. We're going to make predictions by using the actual data. We're going to budget off of actuals. Just to visually show you, so what, I keep using this term trend line. Well, what is that? Well, this is a visual representation, and this was created using Excel. No fancy financial management software. This is Excel. What you're looking at here on the chart, it goes back to 2015 up to 2024. We're making a prediction for 2025. This is how I got the 1.6 number that probably should have been in that budget. The blue line are your actuals. The orange lines that you see, it forks off into 3 lines. We have placed, what I've requested of Excel in this is to make a prediction based on a 95% confidence interval. What do we think our next revenue data point would be using actuals? And when we essentially put it into Excel, we get our result. You get an upper and lower confidence interval. And you can see even at the upper confidence interval with a 95% confidence level, you're still at 1.8. You're not crossing $2 million. And at the bottom, it's 1.5 million. Now, the budget projection that I put on there, hypothetically, if we could go back in time, it's splitting the difference. It's in the middle. Now, one way we can use data like this, let's say we go back in time to 2024, and we say, okay, we have our trend line, we have our prediction, we have our confidence interval, but we know, hypothetically, we know we're getting a large business in Radford. We might make our next data point, our next revenue projection, closer to that upper confidence interval. If we know we're losing a business, we might start to say, well, we probably should take that lower, the path of least resistance and go with something closer to the 1.5 to pull back. The other thing that has to happen throughout the year is monitoring these revenues to make sure that they are performing the way that they should be, and make sure that expenditures are performing the way they should be. If there are any variations that look alarming, there has to be action throughout the fiscal year, either pulling back on spending or taking a look at the revenue. That has to happen, and it needs to be data-based, and we are making it data-based. Just wanted to drive the point home a little bit further. This is restaurant food tax, otherwise known as the meals tax. It's the same chart. I won't go through each column again, but the variance, once again, off of the budgets, over a 3-year period, it's overshot by about $1.3 million. Had we been using actuals and trending off of actuals, we would have been to the good $92,000. So it's very important to use data and to use that for revenue projections, and that is something that staff and myself are going to work very hard to make sure that council has available to you as we're making budget decisions going forward. Once again, 2025 actual is an unaudited number. I talked about, throughout the fiscal year, we have to monitor how our revenues performing, but we also need to monitor how expenditures are performing. And I just want to give an example of what we're tracking so far this year to improve that process. When I came on board, I knew that we were pulling back on payroll expenditures. One thing you want to watch pulling back on payroll expenditures is, well, if you're pulling back on the payroll, is overtime getting out of control? And we want to monitor that, once again, with data and actuals. So what you're looking at here is a control chart. The dotted line in the middle is the average for the last fiscal year. So the assumption that I'm working on with this control chart is, well, if we're pulling back on overtime, or excuse me, if we're pulling back on payroll, well, we want to make sure that we don't perform, or overtime doesn't perform any worse than it did the previous fiscal year. At worst, we don't want it to get any worse than it was, and it's not. As you can see in the chart, the orange line on the upper part of the chart, that's your upper confidence bound. It's 2 standard deviations above the average. Typically, a control chart has 3 standard deviations. The reason I made it 2 above and below is to make it more sensitive to changes. So we'll notice more quickly that we would be getting out of control with our overtime. And we're monitoring it. You can see the last data point is December 5th. We are still within those upper and lower control limits. So overtime is not, if we define being in control as not exceeding the previous fiscal year, it is still in control. How we would use this, let's say we have a month that goes above the upper confidence, the upper control limit. Let's say we get a data point above. Well, that's gonna prompt questioning from management, from department directors. What's going on? What caused that to go above our upper control limit? If we get 4 or 5 data points above or below the average, that's another area we would want to look into, because it's starting to pull your trend down. So we're constantly monitoring our overtime to see how is it trending. You can see it's trending down right now. We do have several data points below the overtime average. And I do want to back up for a second. When we're looking at overtime with the city, there are 2 types of overtime pay periods. There's high period, low period. During a high period, we have our standard overtime, plus fire and police. That happens once a month. We also have low periods, and I want to go to that. During a low period, it's just our standard overtime. Public Works, standard employees, fire and police are not included on these payrolls. You can see, once again, we use the same method, average from the last fiscal year. We want to make sure that we're not getting out of control. And by out of control, I mean our expenditures are not getting too expensive compared to last year. And you can see, yes, we started out, we were kind of close to the upper control limit, but we haven't exceeded it. And it's kind of bobbing back and forth over the average. So we know, for the most part, it's in control. It's trending down slightly. But the bottom control limit is another one we need to pay attention to. We don't want to zero out on overtime. It would become, questions that we would ask: should we start getting data points below the lower control limit? We would start asking ourselves, is there work not getting done? Do we have people available to work overtime? What's going on there? So we would start to ask why questions to get at the root cause of what's going on here. Same thing with going above the upper control limit. We're going to start asking why. Why is that happening, so that we can get it back where it needs to be? And at this point, I'll pause for a second. Any questions or comments from the City Council?
One of the things I wanted to point out is 7 months ago, when we were looking for a city manager and interviewed Todd, one of the things that he brought to his interview were some examples of some of the regression charts and some of the predictions. We recognized as a council that this was a crucial component for the city to be able to make more accurate decisions. And so Todd, in just the brief 4 months that he's been on board with us, has been able to begin to do that work to help us have a greater understanding. It doesn't change the fundamental numbers of how much revenue we have, how much things that we have to spend money on, but it helps us to understand more where we are, where we're going, where we've been, where adjustments need to be made up and down in expenditures and revenues to be able to make this all work. And I think that's a really crucial point. Having had a regression chart for revenues for the last 8 years, I think decisions would have been different among members of council, because we would have seen exactly where we stood in that confidence interval and being able to do that. So thank you for that. Council, do you all have any other questions or comments? Let's keep rolling.
Thank you. So I'd like to discuss a couple items that I know they've been in the news. I know people have been discussing them lately. The first one is the appropriation and disbursement of funds to Radford City Public Schools. The city, as of right now, the city has dispersed $2.8 million to Radford City Schools. That represents approximately half of their annual appropriation. So we're halfway through the fiscal year. They have received half of their appropriation. So we're on schedule. The city has, and I've went through the history the best I can. The city has always met its obligations to the school district. I can't find any instance where it has not. So year in, year out, the city has persistently and consistently met its obligations to the school system, and we will continue to do so. So I want to make that point very clear. I do want to talk a little bit about appropriations and how they work, because I think there's been some confusion, and I think, it would behoove everyone to sort of take a step back and look at an appropriation, what it is and how it works. So the appropriations for the school budgets are made at the beginning of the fiscal year. That is true. They're made at the beginning of the fiscal year. But the thing to keep in mind is that total appropriated budget, whether it be for the school or a department, it's not immediately available on July 1st. That cash isn't sitting there. If there's a $20 million budget, it's not available on July 1st. It's dependent on the availability of funds. And those funds are collected, the actual funds that are collected throughout the fiscal year. That is where the funding comes from to fulfill those appropriations. So the availability of funds is based on the actual collection of revenues throughout the fiscal year. I just want to make that point clear. Disbursement of funds is based on coordination between the municipality and local school system. That's how we have operated. That's how we need to continue to operate. It's not based on a fixed schedule. This system is used in other municipalities, other localities across the state of Virginia, and it works well. As long as we're working together and communicating and coordinating, it works. The coordination ensures, so our goal with coordination and communicating with each other, coordination ensures that the funds are dispersed in a manner to ensure both the city's and the school system's liquidity and cash flows. That's what needs to happen with the communication. That's what needs to happen with the actual disbursement of funds. They need to be made in a manner that maintains the city's liquidity and the school systems. To know how to disperse that in that manner requires good quality communication between the two agencies. And I just want to revisit this. So dispersing funds to schools, at the low point, I want to revisit this. At the city's low point in cash flows, dispersing funds becomes a challenge because we do not want to go below our required cash on hand because, as I said earlier, that puts the city at risk of taking out short-term financing to maintain cash flows, which does not benefit the taxpayer. I want to reiterate that. That puts more burden on the taxpayer. So throughout the fiscal year at these low points, the school system and the city need to coordinate in a manner to make sure that we are dispersing funds that maintains liquidity on both sides for both organizations. And at this point, I'll stop and entertain questions or comments from City Council.
Just one point of clarity. I know that there was a lot of discussion on what our legal obligation was in regards to payments and the intervals of those payments to the schools. Can you touch on that?
I'll defer to Mike for legal question. Mike?
I think that as Todd points out that, in essence, when an appropriation is made, it's made in anticipation of revenues that are going to be received throughout the fiscal year. And for that reason, I think that, in essence, sort of a fixed schedule may not always be feasible, because you don't necessarily know exactly when you're going to receive those funds, through the course of the year. I mean, of course, there's going to be high times when you, say, for example, in December and, June when you receive taxes, but there's going to be low times, as those peaks and troughs show on the chart there. In looking at the regulations and the state code provisions relating to this, there really isn't, necessarily from a legal standpoint, a timeline, for when the funds have to actually be dispersed. I would say, however, that I feel that, in terms of the required local effort, I think that those funds need to be dispersed by the end of the school year. And I think that other funds, if you're saying when there would be a specific time that funds have to have been actually dispersed that were previously appropriated, well, at least by the end of the fiscal year in which they were approved. And of course, certainly the city would not wait till the end of the fiscal year to disperse all funds to the school. But I think what that highlights is that even if not from a legal standpoint, from a practical standpoint, there needs to be an open dialogue between the city and the schools over, what the actual needs are for operations of the schools and what the availability is of funds from the city. That's how it's worked in the past here. It seems to have, served its purpose. That's how it works in other localities. I hope that answers your question, but that's probably the closest I can give you, to an answer.
Mike. All right. I also want to talk about another item that has been discussed publicly. It's in the public discourse here, and rightfully so. So the city of Radford, I want to talk a little bit about the auditor of public accounts and what's going on with Radford's finances. The auditor of public accounts uses an early warning system to monitor localities for fiscal distress based on financial ratios and qualitative factors. Now, once again, they're using data to look into this. So they're looking at revenues coming in, expenditures going out, what is your debt service, are services being provided as they need to. They're looking at that as well. And it's not just Radford, they're monitoring localities across the state. Fiscal distress occurs when a locality's ability to sustain public services or meet financial obligations is threatened by issues like cash flow problems, revenue shortfalls, which we just discussed, or deficit spending, and so forth. Radford's current status and what has attracted the attention of the APA, they noted in their communications with us that there's been a continued downward trend in Radford's financial ratios going back to fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 24, and continued into fiscal year 25. Concerns include the revenue anticipation note that was taken out in 2023, renewed in 24, and then subsequently paid off. Overestimated revenue projections. That's another issue. We are working to clean that up right now. But overestimated revenue projections was part of it. Reliance on budgeted transfers from the electric fund, which reported a negative balance in fiscal year 2024, and so forth. There were several factors that they looked at, and they said, Radford, we need to look into it, and we need to see whether or not they meet the criteria for fiscal distress. Next steps and what this looks like for the city and our organization. The APA is going to conduct a follow-up, and they have actually started with that. That process has already begun. They'll conduct a follow-up with city officials. Trish and myself have already been in contact with them, and we are working to turn over all the information that they need to make this determination. And once again, that determination is, does the city meet the criteria for fiscal distress? If we meet that criteria, what happens? Well, the purpose of this review is not punitive. The state's not looking to punish the city of Radford in any way. If we meet this criteria for fiscal distress, they're not looking to come in and penalize the city. What they're looking to do, if we meet that criteria, is to provide assistance. And that assistance is for financial recovery. That assistance can come in the form of funds, if it's approved by the governor and the legislature. It can come in the form of funds to pay for consulting services, other types of financial advice and financial assistance to develop fiscal policies, fiscal controls, even to develop financial plans for the next 3 to 5 years. So while it's not good, no one wants to be in fiscal distress. That is not good. But if we do meet this criteria, the outcome from this process can come in the form of assistance to help us recover, to provide scaffolding that staff, council, and the community needs to move this thing forward and to continue on a path of financial recovery, to point the ship in the right direction. And I want to finish tonight. A reporter asked me recently what I thought the key ingredient was moving forward. And to be honest, I've put a lot of thought into that because I think he was asking the right question. We should be asking ourselves that. And, you know, the conclusion I came to is whether you're working for the city of Radford, you're working in the school system, a constitutional office, Radford University, an NGO within our city limits, the key ingredient to all this, to make it all work, is a recognition of our shared interest and mission, and that's to improve the quality of life for everyone that lives in our community, in the city of Radford. I think if all of our discourse, all of our conversations start with that as our foundation, there's nothing we can't solve. And I think the city of Radford will be just fine, and the ship will turn in the right direction. I do want to finish by making the point, look, turning this thing around, it's a step-by-step process. It will not happen overnight. It takes time. And we are turning around step by step. We're taking those critical first steps. Some have already been taken. But I look forward to working with everyone to continue Radford's financial recovery and to look at our operations and like I said earlier, to provide the best service possible at the cheapest cost possible. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Todd. And council, any other questions?
Nice job, Todd.
Yeah, Todd, you did do a great job. Do you have any timeline for when we know if we will qualify for the local fiscal distress?
Trish, have they communicated a timeline? I haven't seen one. No, they're just collecting information at this point.
Well, obviously, it's not a list we want to be on by any means. It does look like there are some positive possibilities for resources and a lot of the things we're trying to do internally anyway. So being able to tap into that might be a positive of that situation, I would think.
Yeah, that's correct. Radford is not where it needs to be at this point, but we're trying to get it there, and we're turning the ship.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, sitting in this seat the last several years, I can tell you, if the path is going to be challenging and we have some barriers in front of us, it's nice to know what they are and not be hit by a wall at the end of a dark tunnel. So I appreciate you, being very transparent with us, letting us know what you see and what you've seen, where we need to be going, because we are moving forward. But I do think you're right. It's good to see where we've been and how we got here so we don't repeat it. So I want to just tell you that I appreciate your transparency with us, and that's one of the reasons, again, that you're in this role, is because we're not asking for rainbows and unicorns. You know, we know there are challenges, but what they are, we needed you for. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. While you're there, do you just want to add any other additional city manager comments for this evening? Do you have anything else you want to share with us?
Well, city manager comments. I know we're coming up on the holiday season. I hope everyone has time to spend with your families. Please enjoy. That's some of the most cherished time of the entire year. So hope everyone has a great holiday season.
Thank you, Todd. Guy, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I do want to reiterate one thing that I said earlier in the year, and that's how much I appreciate. Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. How much I appreciate the employees and staff that have stayed with us through these hard times, and I just appreciate them so much and thankful for them, and hope they have a joyous and safe Christmas and New Year's celebration, vacation, whatever you want to call it. The other thing I wanted to mention is we lost what I would call, I suppose, a pillar of our city in the passing of Dr. William Bill Cook this past week. Dr. Cook served as a pediatrician in this city for, I think, about 45 years and treated a lot of our children. And I just feel that we ought to remember his family, especially losing someone during this season is awfully hard. And I hope people will remember them and pray for them. And yeah.
Thank you, Guy. Seth, what do you have this evening?
I'll piggyback off that and send my condolences to the Cook family. I know he's meant so much to so many people in this community, and my prayers and well wishes are for them. We did get a little winter weather early this year. I thought the Public Works did a great job. The roads were in great shape, so I just wanted to thank them. I unfortunately was a little under the weather for the Christmas parade, but it looked like a great turnout, and I peeped my head down there, and it looked great. A lot of festivities going on, so I was glad to see that. As far as meetings go, our planning commission is in the final stages of the zoning rewrite, and just again want to thank Melissa and Affy for all their work on that. They've spent countless hours going through that and looking at things that we can fine tune, and we're getting it close to the finish line. So that should be beginning of next year. We should have that. And again, Todd, I wanted to thank you. I think that presentation was excellent. When we were looking to hire someone, I knew immediately that these were your strengths, and that you can't fix the numbers, but you can tell us the numbers. And I know one of the first things that I asked for on council was monthly financial reports, and more than that, just information. And with you and Trish, I have total confidence that we're going to get that. Now, what we do with that information is on us, and the good, the bad, the ugly, but to have the truth and to have, the numbers are what they are, and then we'll have to do with them what we will. But I appreciate your efforts, and I'm so glad that we have Trish, and I also, Craig's here, and Craig, you did a phenomenal job getting us to this point as well with the three of you and Mike. I know we're in good hands moving forward. So while 2025 was not a good year, it was a challenging year for the city, I do have confidence in 2026 that we can start to turn the corner, turn the page, and start building on this a little bit. I think we have a couple positive things in the fire, and we have some more hard choices that are staring us down the pipe. So we'll have to roll up our sleeves and get back to work, but having things like that gives me more confidence in being able to fix this and to know what the numbers are, and then it'll be up to us to decide what we do. So thank you. I thought it was a great presentation. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year. Look forward to hit the ground running in 2026. That's all I got.
Thanks, Seth. Jesse, what do you have?
Well, I can just say ditto, because basically everything they've said I would also say, but I'm just going to say ditto so I'm not terribly redundant. I'm just going to use this time to also just kind of report out on some of the things that I've been doing in the last month since our last meeting. I attended an amphitheater meeting, a DSS board meeting, a Heritage Foundation meeting, and our first DORA meeting to help ease some of the conflicts that we end up with when we're trying to host a festival. So trying to remove some barriers so we can have more activities in the community. And again, I just want to tell everyone to have a magical season. However you experience it, I will hope it's magnificent and wonderful for you and your loved ones. And also a Happy New Year. And just know that we have our muck boots on, and we're rolling up our sleeves, and we're going to do the hard work that's in front of us. I think you see that we do have some challenges, but I'm honored to be serving with everyone that sits up here, because I have total faith in working together and moving us forward as a community. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Kelly, what do you have this evening?
I'm also getting over a little bit of under the weather, but I'm glad it's past me, and I'll be feeling better for Christmas. I did attend the amphitheater via driving. Also attended the Joint Commission meeting driving. It's been a busy month so far. I did want to make mention that one of the topics that we talked about in Joint Commission was the Highlander Festival and how it was on the same kind of weekend as homecoming. And one of the comments that one of the committee members made is that they were over capacity and couldn't handle the amount of people that had come in and wanted to enjoy Radford. And I thought that was a really good problem to have. So they're considering separating those and not having them on the same weekends. But I thought that was a great problem, that people are wanting to come to Radford, wanting to experience, what RU has to offer, what our city has to offer. So I thought those were really good points. Kudos to the Radford art students. I have loved all of the paintings that they've done. I think art, with use of creativity is so important, and I hope that continues. I know that's really difficult to paint on that scale, so you guys did a really great job, and I hope that becomes an annual thing. Thank you to everybody who participated in the parade. It wasn't too cold, and to anybody that wants to call it a tow truck parade, I welcome that comment, because the display of tow trucks that they had piggybacked on each other, I thought was amazing. So I thought that was a really good wood parade. There was a bunch of people out. Everybody had a good time. And we held off on all the candy until the very end. So we made it all the way through with the candy. So we did. Well,
We had
were very
reserves, that's
strategic.
right.
We were strategic about it. So yeah, it was a really good time. So the amphitheater meeting went well. Hopefully we will have some trial concerts next year. We're working on that. And just to reiterate on the other comments we have, I don't think it's anybody's it's any secret that we've had a rough year as a city. And times have been hard, but I know I've said it in the past before, and I'll say it again, Radford is very resilient. We have some of the best staff and department managers and, city managers and people that are coming on board to help that we're so thankful for. I think we really do have we're set up to have a much better year this year. It's going to be difficult. We made some difficult decisions last year, and I have no doubt that there's going to be more difficult decisions to be made, but I think we are in a much better decision to make them. One of the things I loved about Todd, and I know everybody has said it, I love analyzing, and I'm an auditor, so I do that for a living, but you can't move forward if you don't learn from the past. You can't change the past, like you said, but you can learn from it. And you're not going to be able to better your future if you don't look back and see what's worked and not worked. So I appreciate your analytical mind, and I know I will enjoy all of the spreadsheets and Excel graphs in the coming months. And I do hope everybody has a good Christmas and New Year's. I have a really good feeling about the next year and everything that's to come for our city and our citizens. I appreciate everybody up here. I appreciate everybody doing everything we can. So, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Kelly. And, I wanted to speak a little bit about our Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays parade. I thought it was wonderful to have so many people come out. I thought it lifted the spirits during a challenging time, and it was a very positive thing. I also wanted to mention we had our tree lighting at the library, and the library staff always does an amazing job with that program, but it is not just them. Public Works, Fire, EMS, PD, the entire city staff coming together to make sure that we have a wonderful event there. So I wanted to say thank you for that. That's always a tremendous part of our community celebration. Todd's presentation this evening was crucial for multiple reasons. I think the takeaways with the budget pieces is that we are looking at things differently, and we are working to budget differently. We began that process when Craig Meadows came on board with us as interim city manager, and that was really helpful because I know for those of us that have been on council for a few years longer and those that have been on since 2022 or 2023, we've always asked for more data, trying to understand where we are, where we're going, and what we need to do as a council to adjust that. And having that information is really, really crucial in asking those questions of, do we need to look at cutting budgets? Do we need to look at raising revenue? Those questions have always been asked. We haven't always gotten the answers that we've needed, and we appreciate what we're getting from our staff. Trish, welcome aboard, and thank you so much for all the work you've done. I will just give a sneak preview as we continue these kind of community conversations and reports. Trish is already worth her weight in her service to Radford because she absolutely has helped us find things that we could be doing better and that we could improve. And that's been wonderful, and we're so thankful in that area. And finally making some adjustments to some things we absolutely need. So Trish, we appreciate everything you've done. Craig, thank you for all the work you did to help us get into this position to move things to a better place. And Todd, thank you for the presentation and for coming on board and working with us. 2025 has been a challenging year, but I'm going to say ever since we got on council, it was kind of like, wow, 2020, man, that was a tough year. 2021 was a tough year. 2022, it's felt like every single year has had its own set of issues and challenges, whether they be pandemics or budgetary related pieces or natural disasters or whatever they happen to be. I will bring up Kelly and others' points about the resilience of our city staff, and I want to say thank you to all of them. Thank you again to Janet for helping us be able to provide a small token of our appreciation in the form of a bonus using the DMV Select funds, and we're appreciative of that. I wish we could do more, and we want to do more for all of our employees, and we're working to build a sustainable city economy and a sustainable budget that will allow for that, because we recognize this has been hard. This has been hard for everybody that's been involved. And I think the hardest part has been understanding exactly where we were and what we could do to make a change and working through that. And I think you see some differences in the way some of the elements are presented. We're going to be working through budget season through the first half of 2026, and you'll be seeing a lot more of those kinds of charts and graphs and explanations and looking back and understanding things and looking forward. I'm really appreciative that we've been doing a lot of internal review and internal examination to know exactly where we are and what we're doing well, those things that could be improved, and those things that need to be brought up to best practices. And I think we're working on that. We're far along in that process. And we will continue to do that as we move forward. And I think we've got some exciting things coming. As hard as 2025 has been, I reflect back on the year and I look at all the wonderful things that I saw happen throughout this year in terms of ways our citizens came together after Hurricane Helene in the spring when we came out to restore our parks, to plant new trees, to build up the environment, when we all got to come back together in Bissett Park and celebrate at Easter time, one of the first big events after the natural disaster, and we're so appreciative of that. I looked at Community Fest this summer, one of the best public events we've had in Radford, and some of the fantastic things happening. I've looked at the West Radford Commerce Park and the progress that we've made. This has been a minimum 7-year project that we've been working on and definitely been picking up speed the last few years. And what I see with that is we're right on the doorstep of being able to turn that into a job creator, into a revenue generator, into a new hope for that portion of our community that sat vacant for decades. And we're working on that diligently. Thank you to the EDA, thank you to Kim, thank you to Todd and the entire staff working on that. So I think my point is, in every year, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be a challenge, and a lot of folks don't mind pointing those challenges out. We have to know them, we have to work through them, we have to address them. But I think we also have to uncover and highlight those things that are positive in our community, because if we're not ambassadors for ourselves, others won't be. And we need to continue to work together to move forward that way, because Radford is a great community. We've been through hard times in the past. We found our way forward. As many challenges as we have, we find a way to move ahead, and we keep rolling along. And I think we will keep rolling along as we reimagine and rebuild and reestablish the things that we need to in our community. There's going to be a lot more of these kind of conversations, so hopefully you'll be able to participate. Whether you're here in person or you're watching online, you watch these, please share them. And I think it's important to share the context, because it's very easy for someone to take a line or a statement and perhaps that's misinterpreted and turned into something that it's not. I think you heard a lot of very important factual information this evening, and hopefully you'll share that with the community. Happy Hanukkah to those celebrating this evening. This is the 8th night of Hanukkah, and I know that's a big celebration for many in our community. Happy holiday season. There's so many holidays between now and the end of the year. New Year's just around the corner, and Christmas just 3 days away. I hope you all have a wonderful season and a happy new year. And with that, we will adjourn for the evening. Thank you. We're